At 18, she was sent to a widower with 3 children who wanted nothing to do with her. What happened next changed them all. Wyoming Territory, autumn of 1879. The wagon rattled over frozen ground, each jolt sending splinters of pain through Elena Moore's spine. She sat rigid on the wooden bench, hands clutched tight in her lap, staring at the endless stretch of pale sky ahead. The wind bit through her thin cloak, sharp as a blade, but she did not flinch. She had learned long ago that showing weakness only invited cruelty. Beside her, her uncle drove in silence. His face was stone, his jaw set. He had not spoken to her in 2 days, not since the night he told her she was being sent away. No explanation, no apology, just a cold command and a handshake with a stranger. "You'll work," he had said. "You'll be useful. That's more than you've been here." Elena had not argued. What good would it do? She was 18, unmarried and unwanted, a burden her uncle had carried since her parents died of fever 3 winters ago. Now he was rid of her. The wagon crested a low hill, and there it was. A ranch house, weathered and gray, sitting alone against the vast Wyoming plains. Smoke curled from the chimney. A barn leaned slightly to one side. Chickens scattered in the yard. It looked tired, like everything else out here. Her uncle pulled the wagon to a stop. The silence stretched long and uncomfortable. Then the front door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, his face lined with years and grief. His hair was dark, streaked with gray at the temples. His eyes were distant, cold. He did not smile. He did not welcome her. He simply stood there, arms crossed, watching. "This her?" the man asked. "This is Elena," her uncle replied. "She's young, but she works. She'll do what you need." The man's gaze swept over her once, then away as if she were livestock being delivered. "Fine." Her uncle climbed down, pulled her small bag from the back of the wagon and dropped it in the dirt. He did not look at her. He did not say goodbye. He simply climbed back up, snapped the reins, and drove away. Elena stood alone in the cold, clutching her bag, watching the wagon disappear into the distance. Her throat burned, but she did not cry. She had no tears left for men who threw her away. "Come inside," the man said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "I'll show you where you'll sleep." She followed him into the house. It was dim inside, the curtains drawn against the afternoon light. The air smelled of wood smoke and old coffee. A large wooden table dominated the center of the room, surrounded by mismatched chairs. On the mantel above the fireplace sat a single photograph, a woman with soft eyes and a gentle smile. Thomas Reed did not look at the photograph. He gestured toward a narrow hallway. "That room. It's small, but it's yours. You'll help with meals, laundry, mending. The children need looking after." "How many?" Elena asked quietly. 3. He paused. "They don't talk much. Don't expect them to warm to you." Before she could respond, footsteps echoed from the hall. 3 children emerged, slow and cautious like deer stepping into a clearing. The oldest, a boy with dark hair and wary eyes, stood at the front. Behind him, a girl with tangled braids glared at Elena with open suspicion. The youngest, a small boy with round cheeks and dirt on his hands, peeked out from behind his sister. Thomas gestured to each in turn. "James, Anna, Henry." Elena smiled gently. "Hello." No one smiled back. Anna's glare sharpened. James crossed his arms. Henry ducked further behind his sister. "They lost their mother a year ago," Thomas said quietly. "They don't need another one." The words landed like stones. Elena felt them settle in her chest, heavy and cold. She nodded once. "I understand." Thomas turned away. "Supper's at 6. Don't be late." He walked out the back door, leaving her alone with 3 children who stared at her like she was an intruder in their home. Because that was exactly what she was. Elena set her bag down slowly. She looked at the children. They looked back, silent and unmoving. The house felt colder than the plains outside. "I'll start on supper," she said softly. No one answered. Anna turned and walked away. James followed. Henry hesitated, his wide eyes lingering on Elena for just a moment longer. Then he too disappeared down the hall. Elena stood in the empty kitchen, the weight of silence pressing down on her shoulders. She had been sent here to work, to be useful, to earn her place. But as she looked around the cold, quiet house, she realized something. This was not a home. It was a place where people survived, where they moved through rooms like ghosts, untouching, unspeaking, unliving, and now she was one of them. She walked to the stove, lit the fire, and began to work. Because that was all she had left. Work, silence, and the faint, fragile hope that maybe, somehow, things could be different. But hope, she had learned, was a dangerous thing to hold on to. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the fire crackled softly, and in the photograph on the mantel, the woman with the gentle smile watched over a family that had forgotten how to be whole. The days passed slowly, each one bleeding into the next like ink on wet paper. Elena woke before dawn, dressed in the dark, and moved through the house like a shadow. She cooked, she cleaned, she mended torn shirts and patched worn trousers. She did everything Thomas asked and more. But the children remained distant. James watched her with careful eyes, always from a distance, never speaking unless spoken to. Anna refused to look at her at all, turning her face away whenever Elena entered a room, and Henry, sweet Henry, would sometimes stand near her while she worked, but the moment she smiled at him he would run away. Elena did not push. She did not force herself into their lives. She simply continued, quiet and steady, hoping that time would soften the walls they had built. One morning she found Anna sitting alone on the porch steps, staring out at the fields. The girl's shoulders were hunched, her hands twisted in her lap. Elena hesitated, then sat down beside her, leaving space between them. "It's cold this morning," Elena said gently. Anna said nothing. Elena folded her hands. "I used to sit like this, back home, before I came here." Still nothing. "I'd watch the sky change," Elena continued softly. "Sometimes it felt like the only thing that made sense." Anna's jaw tightened. Then, without looking at Elena, she whispered, "You're not my mother." Elena's chest tightened, but she kept her voice calm. "I know." "Then why are you here?" "Because your father needed help." Anna turned then, eyes blazing. "We don't need you. We were fine before." Elena met her gaze, steady and kind. "Were you?" The question hung in the air. Anna's lip trembled, her fists clenched. Then she stood abruptly and ran inside, slamming the door behind her. Elena sat alone on the steps, the cold seeping through her skirt. She did not cry. She simply breathed, slow and deliberate, and told herself that this was part of it. The waiting, the patience, the silence. Later that afternoon she baked bread. The warm, yeasty smell filled the house, curling through every room like a gentle invitation. Henry appeared in the doorway, drawn by the scent. He stood there, small and uncertain, his fingers gripping the edge of the frame. Elena smiled. "Would you like some?" He nodded, just barely. She cut a thick slice, spread it with butter, and handed it to him. He took it carefully, as if it might disappear. Then he bit into it, his eyes widening. "Good?" Elena asked. Henry nodded again, crumbs clinging to his lips. He took another bite, then another. When he finished, he looked up at her with something new in his eyes. Not trust, not yet, but curiosity. "Thank you," he whispered. Elena's heart swelled. "You're welcome, Henry." He lingered for a moment longer, then turned and ran back down the hall. But this time, when he reached the doorway, he looked back. Just once, and smiled. It was small, fleeting, but it was there. That evening, Thomas came in from the fields, his face lined with exhaustion. He washed his hands in the basin, then sat at the table without a word. Elena set a plate in front of him, stew thick and hot with bread on the side. He ate in silence. She did not expect thanks. She had learned not to. But when he finished, he paused. His hand rested on the table, rough and scarred. The bread was good. Elena blinked, surprised. "Thank you." He nodded once, then stood and walked toward the door. But before he left, he stopped. "The children, they're not easy." "I know," Elena said quietly. "Their mother," he trailed off, his jaw tightening. "She was everything to them." Elena folded her hands. "I'm not trying to replace her." Thomas looked at her then, really looked, for the first time since she arrived. His eyes were tired, haunted. "Then what are you trying to do?" "Just be here," she said simply. "That's all." He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out into the cold. Elena stood alone in the kitchen, the firelight flickering against the walls. She had no grand plan, no strategy. She was simply doing what she knew how to do. Show up, stay steady, be kind. and hoped that somehow it would be enough. The next morning she woke to find a small wooden horse on her doorstep, carved by hand, rough around the edges, but unmistakably intentional. She picked it up carefully, turning it over in her palms. From down the hall she heard the faint sound of footsteps retreating. She smiled. Henry. She placed the horse on the windowsill in her room, where the morning light could touch it. A small gift, a small step, a beginning. Days turned into weeks. Elena continued her quiet work. She learned the rhythm of the house. James liked his eggs scrambled, not fried. Anna hated carrots. Henry would eat anything if you sang while cooking. She learned that Thomas rose before the sun and worked until his hands bled, that he never spoke of his wife, but sometimes late at night she could hear him standing in the hallway outside the children's rooms, just listening. She learned that grief lived in this house like a fourth child. Silent, unseen, but always present. One evening Anna came into the kitchen while Elena was washing dishes. The girl stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her face guarded. "Why do you stay?" Anna asked suddenly. Elena turned, drying her hands. "What do you mean? You could leave. You don't have to be here." Elena set the towel down slowly. "Where would I go?" Anna frowned. "Anywhere. Back to your family." "I don't have family anymore," Elena said quietly. "Not really." The girl's expression shifted just slightly. "So you're alone?" "Yes." Anna looked down at her feet. "Me too." Elena's throat tightened. She took a careful step forward. "You're not alone, Anna. You have your brothers, your father." "It's not the same." "I know." Silence fell between them. Not hostile, not warm, just present. Then Anna spoke again, softer this time. "She used to braid my hair every morning, even when I didn't want her to." Elena nodded. "I can braid hair." Anna's eyes flicked up, suspicious. "I didn't ask." "I know." Another pause. Then almost reluctantly, Anna stepped closer. She turned around, her back to Elena, and waited. Elena's hands trembled slightly as she reached for the girl's tangled hair. She worked gently, carefully, her fingers moving through the strands with patience. Anna did not pull away. When the braid was finished, Elena tied it with a ribbon she had saved from her own belongings. "There." Anna touched the braid, her fingers lingering on the ribbon. She did not say thank you, but she did not leave either. And when she finally walked away, Elena saw something she had not seen before. Anna's shoulders just slightly less tense, her steps just slightly lighter. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was something. And in this house of ghosts and grief, something was more than Elena had dared to hope for. The morning started like any other. Elena woke before dawn, dressed quietly, and made her way to the kitchen. The house was still, wrapped in the kind of silence that comes just before the world wakes. She lit the stove, set water to boil, and began preparing breakfast. But something felt different today. Wrong. She could not name it. Just a tightness in her chest, a weight in the air. When Thomas came down, his face was darker than usual. He sat at the table without a word, his jaw clenched. James and Anna followed, their eyes downcast. Henry climbed into his chair, sensing the tension but not understanding it. Elena set plates in front of them. No one spoke. No one ate. Finally, Thomas broke the silence. "I have to go into town today. I'll be gone until evening." Elena nodded. "I'll look after the children." "James will come with me," Thomas said. "Anna and Henry stay here." Anna's head snapped up. "Why can't I come?" "Because I said so." "That's not fair." Thomas's hand slammed on the table. The sound cracked through the room like a gunshot. "I said no, Anna. That's the end of it." Anna's eyes filled with tears. She shoved her chair back and ran from the room. A moment later, a door slammed upstairs. Thomas stood, his face hard. "James, get ready." The boy nodded and left without a word. Thomas followed, grabbing his coat from the hook. He paused at the door, his back to Elena. "She's difficult," he said quietly. "She's hurting," Elena replied. Thomas said nothing. Then he walked out. Elena stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the untouched plates. She took a slow breath, then climbed the stairs. She knocked softly on Anna's door. "Go away." "Anna, it's me." "I said go away." Elena hesitated, then opened the door slowly. Anna sat on her bed, arms wrapped around her knees, face buried. Her shoulders shook. I don't want you here, Anna said, voice muffled. Elena stepped inside. I know. Then why won't you leave? Because I promised I'd stay. Anna lifted her head. Her eyes were red, her cheeks streaked with tears. You don't belong here. You're not my mother. You'll never be her. The words cut deep, but Elena did not flinch. She sat down on the edge of the bed, leaving space between them. You're right. I'm not her. I could never be. Anna blinked, surprised. But I'm here, Elena continued softly. And I'm not leaving. Why? Anna's voice cracked. Why do you even care? Elena looked down at her hands. Because I know what it's like to be alone, to feel like no one sees you, like you're just in the way. Anna's breath hitched. I was sent here because my uncle didn't want me, Elena said. I was a burden, something to get rid of. And I came to this house thinking I'd always be that, just someone who takes up space. She looked at Anna, but then I saw you, and James, and Henry, and I realized something. What? Anna whispered. That maybe I could be useful. Not as a replacement, not as someone trying to fix what's broken, just as someone who stays. Anna's lip trembled. I miss her so much. I know. It hurts every day. I know. Anna's face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying. Not the angry tears from before, deep, wrenching sobs that came from a place too raw to hide. Elena did not hesitate. She pulled the girl into her arms, holding her tight. Anna did not pull away. She clung to Elena, her small body shaking, her tears soaking into Elena's dress. Elena held her, one hand smoothing her hair, the other wrapped around her shoulders. I'm here, Elena whispered. I'm here. They sat like that for a long time. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. Inside, two people who had been strangers began slowly to become something more. When Anna finally pulled back, her face was blotchy and red. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I'm sorry. Don't be. I was mean to you. Elena smiled gently. You were protecting yourself. That's not wrong. Anna looked down at her lap. Do you really want to stay? Yes. Even though we're difficult? Elena's smile widened, especially because of that. Anna almost laughed. Almost, but her eyes were softer now, less guarded. Can you braid my hair again? She asked quietly. Of course. They sat together on the bed, Elena's fingers working gently through Anna's hair. This time Anna did not tense. She leaned back, relaxed, trusting. When the braid was finished, Anna turned around. Thank you. You're welcome. For the first time, Anna smiled, small, hesitant, but real. Downstairs, Henry was playing with wooden blocks on the floor. He looked up when they came down together. Anna, you okay? Anna nodded. Yeah, I'm okay. Henry grinned. Good. Can we have the honey bread now? Elena laughed softly. Yes, we can have honey bread. The three of them sat at the table, sharing the sweet bread Elena had baked the day before. They talked quietly. Anna asked questions about where Elena came from. Henry told a rambling story about a frog he found. Elena listened, her heart full. But then, as the afternoon stretched on, something changed. The sky darkened. The wind grew fierce. Snow began to fall, thick and fast, swirling in heavy gusts. Elena stood at the window, watching the world turn white. It's a storm, Anna said, standing beside her. Yes, Papa and James. Elena's chest tightened. They'll be all right. Your father knows these roads. But the storm did not ease. It grew worse. By evening, the wind howled like a living thing, and the snow piled high against the door. Elena lit every lamp in the house. She kept the fire roaring. She made supper, though none of them ate much. Henry fell asleep on the couch. Anna sat beside him, stroking his hair. Elena stood at the window, staring into the white abyss. They should be back by now, Anna whispered. I know. What if something happened? Elena turned. She knelt beside Anna, taking her hands. Your father is strong. He'll come home. But even as she said it, doubt clawed at her chest. The storm was too fierce, the roads too dangerous. Night fell. Storm raged on. And Thomas and James did not return. Anna's eyes filled with tears again. What if we lose them too? Elena pulled her close. We won't. How do you know? Because we're going to wait. Together. And when they come through that door, we'll be here. Anna nodded, clinging to Elena. Henry stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Elena held both children close, her own heart pounding with fear she refused to show. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, they waited. And in the silence between the howling wind, Elena whispered a prayer she had not spoken in years. Please, bring them home. The storm did not stop. It clawed at the house like a beast trying to get in, rattling the shutters, shaking the walls. Snow piled against the windows until the world outside disappeared entirely. Inside, the fire burned low. The oil in the lamps grew thin, and still, Thomas and James did not return. Elena paced the floor, her mind racing. She had promised Anna they would be all right, but what if they were not? What if they were lost in the white? What if the cold had taken them? No, she could not think like that. Anna sat on the couch, Henry curled against her side, both of them staring at the door as if they could will it to open. Elena joined them, wrapping a blanket around all three of them. She did not speak. There were no words left. Hours passed. The storm began to ease, the wind dropping from a scream to a moan. The snow still fell, but softer now. Gentler. Elena stood and moved to the window, wiping away the frost with her sleeve. Nothing, just white. Endless white. Then a shadow. Elena's breath caught. She pressed closer to the glass, squinting through the swirling snow. Yes, there. Two shapes moving through the drifts. They're here, she gasped. Anna leapt to her feet. Papa? Elena ran to the door and threw it open. The cold rushed in like a wave, stealing her breath. But she did not care. She stepped out onto the porch, snow crunching beneath her feet. Thomas staggered forward, James at his side. Both were covered in snow, their faces red and raw from the wind. Thomas's coat was torn. James limped, his hand clutched to his side. Inside, Elena said urgently. Now. Thomas did not argue. He stumbled through the door, James leaning heavily against him. Elena slammed the door shut and bolted it. Anna and Henry rushed forward, their voices overlapping. Papa! James! Thomas dropped to his knees, pulling both younger children into his arms. His body shook, whether from cold or relief. Elena could not tell. James collapsed into a chair, his face pale. Elena moved quickly. She stoked the fire until it roared. She filled the kettle and set it to boil. She grabbed blankets and wrapped them around Thomas and James, her hands steady despite the fear pounding in her chest. What happened? She asked. Thomas's voice was hoarse. Wagon broke. Wheel came off. We tried to fix it, but the storm hit too fast. We had to leave it. Walk back. In that, Elena gestured toward the window. We didn't have a choice. James coughed, his whole body shuddering. Elena knelt beside him, pressing her hand to his forehead. He was burning. He's fevered, she said. Thomas's eyes widened. No. Help me get him to bed. Between them, they half-carried James down the hall to his room. Elena stripped off his wet clothes, dressed him in dry ones, and piled every blanket she could find on top of him. His teeth chattered. His skin was pale as snow. I'll make something warm, Elena said. You stay with him. Thomas nodded, his face stricken. Elena returned to the kitchen and worked quickly, boiling water with willow bark and honey. Her hands moved on instinct, her mind focused. She had done this before, back when her mother was alive. She knew fever. She knew how to fight it. She brought the tea to James, helped him drink it slowly. He grimaced at the taste but finished it. Then she soaked a cloth in cool water and pressed it to his forehead. You're going to be all right, she whispered. James looked at her, his eyes glassy. I'm sorry. For what? For not being nicer. To you. Elena's throat tightened. Don't worry about that now. Just rest. He nodded weakly and closed his eyes. Elena stayed beside him, changing the cloth every few minutes, monitoring his breathing. Thomas stood at the foot of the bed watching, his fists clenched. He'll be all right, Elena said quietly. You don't know that. Yes, I do, she looked up at him. Because I won't let him be anything else. Thomas stared at her. For the first time she saw something crack in his expression. Fear. Desperation. And beneath it all, a flicker of hope. The night stretched on. Anne and Henry fell asleep curled together on the couch. Thomas sat in the rocking chair beside James's bed, his head in his hands. Elena moved between the kitchen and the bedroom, making more tea, fetching fresh water, never stopping. By dawn the fever began to break. James's breathing steadied. His color returned. He opened his eyes and smiled weakly. "You're still here," he murmured. Elena brushed the hair from his forehead. "Where else would I be?" He did not answer. He just reached for her hand and held it. She squeezed gently. Thomas stood, his legs stiff from sitting all night. He looked at Elena, and for the first time since she arrived, his eyes were not cold. They were warm, grateful. "You saved him," he said quietly. Elena shook her head. "We saved him. Together." Thomas took a step closer. "I was wrong about you." "What do you mean?" "I thought." He paused, struggling for words. "I thought you were just another stranger. Someone passing through. Someone who didn't matter." Elena's heart pounded. "But you're not," Thomas continued. "You stayed when you didn't have to. You fought for him, for all of them." He reached out, his rough hand covering hers. "You matter, Elena. To them. To me." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't come here to be needed." "I know," Thomas said. "But you are." The words hung in the air, fragile and true. Elena looked at him, at this man who had been so distant, so closed, and now, standing before her, vulnerable and open. "I don't want you to leave," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere," she replied. Thomas exhaled, his shoulders sagging with relief. Then slowly, hesitantly, he pulled her into his arms. Elena stiffened for a moment, surprised. Then she relaxed, leaning into him. They stood like that for a long time. Two people who had been strangers. Two people who had learned, through fire and fear, to see each other. When they finally pulled apart, Anna stood in the doorway. Her eyes were wide. "Is James okay?" "Yes," Elena said, smiling. "He's going to be fine." Anna ran to the bed and threw her arms around her brother. James groaned but hugged her back. Henry appeared a moment later, climbing onto the bed to join them. Thomas watched his children, his expression soft. Then he looked at Elena. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," she said. "Yes," he said. "I do." Outside, the storm had passed. The sun broke through the clouds, spilling golden light across the snow. The world was still, quiet, beautiful. And inside the house something had shifted. The walls no longer felt cold. The silence no longer felt heavy. For the first time in a long time, the house felt like a home. Because Elena was not just working anymore. She was not just surviving. She was part of something. Part of them. And they were part of her. Spring came slowly to Wyoming, melting the snow inch by inch, revealing the brown earth beneath. The fields turned green. Wildflowers pushed through the soil, stubborn and bright. And inside the Reed house, something else bloomed. Elena no longer woke feeling like an outsider. She woke to the sound of Henry's laughter echoing down the hall, to Anna humming while she dressed, to James chopping wood outside before breakfast. She woke to a house that had learned to breathe again. One morning she found Thomas standing in the doorway of her room. He held something in his hands wrapped in cloth. "I made this," he said quietly. Elena took it carefully. Inside was a wooden frame, simple but sturdy, and pressed beneath the glass was a wildflower, dried and preserved. The same kind that grew near the creek where she and the children had played the week before. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Thomas looked down. "I wanted you to have something. Something that's yours." Elena's throat tightened. "Thank you." He nodded, then hesitated. "There's something else I need to say." She waited. "When you first came here, I didn't want you," Thomas said. His voice was rough, honest. "I didn't want anyone. I thought if I kept the world out, kept people out, the pain would stay manageable." Elena listened, her heart steady. "But you didn't let me push you away," he continued. "You stayed. You fought for them. You fought for me even when I didn't deserve it." He stepped closer. "And now I can't imagine this house without you in it." Elena's breath caught. Thomas reached for her hand. His touch was warm, careful. "I know I'm not easy. I know I've got nothing to offer but hard work and 3 children who can be more stubborn than mules." She laughed softly, tears blurring her vision. "But if you'll have us," Thomas said, his voice breaking, "if you'll stay not because you were sent here but because you choose to, then I'd like to make this real." Elena looked at him, at this man who had been stone in silence when she arrived, who had softened piece by piece until she could see his heart. I already chose, she whispered. The moment I stayed. Thomas exhaled, a sound like relief and joy tangled together. He pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. Then marry me, Elena. Be theirs. Be mine. Yes, she said. The word barely a breath. Yes. They stood like that, wrapped in quiet uncertainty. Outside, birds sang. The sun climbed higher, and somewhere in the house Anna shrieked with delight. Elena and Thomas pulled apart, laughing. Anna burst into the room, Henry and James close behind. I heard, Anna said, grinning. You said yes? Elena knelt down, opening her arms. Anna ran into them, followed by Henry. James stood back, but his smile was wide. Thomas rested a hand on his son's shoulder, and James leaned into it. We're a family now, Anna said, her voice fierce and certain. A real one. Elena looked at each of them. These children who had been strangers, who had pushed her away, who had slowly, carefully let her in, and she felt something she had not felt in years. She felt like she belonged. The days that followed were different, softer. There was laughter at meals. Anna asked Elena to teach her how to sew a quilt. Henry insisted Elena tuck him in every night, asking for stories about faraway places. James, still quiet, began leaving small gifts, a smooth stone, a feather, a carved bird. One evening Thomas found Elena in the garden planting seeds for summer vegetables. He knelt beside her, his hands working the soil alongside hers. I never thanked you properly, he said. For what? For saving James, for staying with Anna when she needed someone, for giving Henry his smile back. He paused, for giving me a reason to hope again. Elena's eyes filled. You gave me the same. Thomas turned to her, cupping her face gently. I love you, Elena. I should have said it sooner. I love you too, she whispered. He kissed her then, slow and tender as the sun dipped below the horizon. The wedding was small. A few neighbors came, the preacher from town, the blacksmith and his wife. Elena wore a simple dress Anna had helped her sew. Thomas wore his cleanest shirt, his hair combed back, his hands scrubbed clean. They stood beneath the cottonwood tree near the house, the one where Anna liked to read on warm afternoons. The sky was blue and endless. The wind was gentle. When the preacher asked if Thomas took Elena to be his wife, he said, I do, his voice steady and sure. And when Elena was asked the same, she looked at Thomas, at the children standing beside them, at the life they had built from silence and survival. I do, she said. James, Anna, and Henry cheered. Thomas smiled, really smiled, and pulled Elena close. He kissed her gently, and the world seemed to pause, just for them. Afterward they ate cake. Anna had insisted on making. Henry chased chickens around the yard. James played his harmonica. Elena danced with Thomas in the grass, laughing when he stepped on her feet. I'm not much of a dancer, he admitted. Neither am I, Elena said. They swayed together, clumsy and perfect. Anna and Henry joined them, forming a circle, all of them moving to the music James played. This was not the life Elena had imagined when her uncle drove her here all those months ago. She had expected work, loneliness, coldness. But she had found something else. She had found a place where she mattered, where she was needed, where she was loved. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Elena stood on the porch with Thomas. His arm was around her shoulders. She leaned into him, her heart full. I was so afraid when I came here, she said quietly. Of what? Thomas asked. That I'd never be enough. Thomas turned her to face him. You were always enough, Elena, from the first day. She smiled, tears spilling down her cheeks. Not from sadness, from joy, from the overwhelming beautiful certainty that she was home. Inside, the children were already asleep, tangled together on the couch. Outside, the stars began to appear one by one like promises written in light. And in that moment Elena understood something she had not known before. That love was not always loud or grand. Sometimes it was quiet, patient, built one small moment at a time. It was bread baked in the early morning. It was a braid tied with a ribbon. It was a wooden horse left on a doorstep. It was staying when leaving would have been easier. It was choosing every single day to be present, to be kind, to be there. And now Elena was not just there, she was theirs, and they were hers. Forever. And the end. If this story of survival, courage, and unexpected love touched your heart. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Wild West Untold Love for more tales of redemption on the frontier. And if a moment or a feeling in this story stayed with you, we'd love to hear it in the comments below. Because sometimes the strongest souls are forged in the darkest places, and the greatest love stories begin with the simplest act of kindness.